This short presentation is about grid reliability. It pertains to the PSC resource adequacy docket. Grid reliability is the reason resource adequacy is key. It's what is needed to keep the lights on. I'm going to go through very briefly, some electric grid basics. The electric grid, it's a vast, complex network of power plants, transmission lines, and distribution centers, as you see here depicted. United States electrical grid brings power to millions of homes and businesses. The first United States electrical grid was in 1882, and there were 59 customers. Within several years of the grid's origin, transformers were developed, and thereafter there was rapid expansion. Today, hundreds of millions of customers. Here's the way it used to be done. Today in the United States, there are roughly 11,000 power plants, 3,000 utilities, and 2 million miles of power lines. Due to the high cost of maintaining the grid, electricity transmission and distribution is considered a natural monopoly. Only companies with multi-million-dollar investors can do this. That's why most energy utilities are granted monopoly control over a local market and then mandated to provide affordable, reliable energy. To enforce the monopoly's mandate to provide affordable, reliable energy, investor-owned utilities are regulated by state regulatory commissions, such as the Montana Public Service Commission. I suspect most people think there's a vast storage of electricity that brings us light when we flip the switch. Truth is that electricity is coming to you in real time. Minute by minute, out of sight, grid operators balance supply and demand. Here are some photos of those unsung heroes who keep the lights on. The grid and its operators only come to public attention when there is a large-scale failure. They are behind the scenes keeping the lights on. Grid adequacy, including resiliency, is of increasing concern as we face adverse weather, aging energy infrastructure, cyber and physical attacks on the grid, growing demand, disparity between supply and demand of grid components down to the mineral level, as I've discussed in previous talks. Grid adequacy also faces addition of more intermittent sources of power, like solar and wind, shuttering of reliable sources of baseload power, like coal, regulatory resistance to needed transmission lines and power generation stations, regulatory resistance to mining the minerals needed. Government funding for grid reliability has included trillions of dollars. Is that the answer? Is the money set up to serve the purpose? Government programs can work. There's an example of Central Valley, California, that went from Dust Bowl devastation to become the fruit basket of the world. This is what it looked like during the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. And prior to 1930, less than 3% of rural Western United States had electricity. Then came FDR's projects in the 1930s with hydroelectric dams and other projects. And today, this is what we have there. So from Dust Bowl to this beautiful fruit basket of the world. So proof that government programs can work. So back to government funding for grid reliability. These are just three of the different programs. 2022 Inflation Reduction Act that we're all familiar with, $890 billion. $783 billion of that went for energy and climate change. 2022, the CHIPS and Science Act, $280 billion for domestic research and U.S. manufacturing of semiconductors. 2021 Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act was amended to be 1.2 trillion, 73 billion for energy. Almost all of the subsidies went for solar and wind power generation projects. Proportionally little was put in for minerals and transmission. So far, primarily funding solar and wind generation facilities without adequate provision for minerals, semiconductors, inverters, transformers, transmission lines to make solar and wind generation functional. That's what I see so far in my studies. Government involvement in this process includes FERC. In 2005, the Energy Policy Act designated the Department of Energy's Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, as the primary authority over power generation and transmission across the United States. So this is a critical department. We are fortunate the current chair of FERC appears to have wisdom, knowledge, foresight, and the willingness to face reality. His name is Willie Phillips. He is an attorney with over 20 years in the energy industry, appointed by President Biden, unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate. And he was the former chair of the DC PSC, so very, very experienced. Chairman Phillips and I made a good connection at the Western PSC conference in Napa, California in May. I have formally invited him to come to Montana and hope to get a public conference going. By all evidence from everything that I've seen, he is a man for the people, and he is concerned with balancing the need for a clean environment with the need for energy for people to live and thrive. I have listened to hours of his meetings, and I see the same man every time. He's the real deal, by my estimation. The grid is a dynamic system that has rapidly evolved since its origins in 1882 to accommodate new technologies, increased demand, and a growing need for reliable, diverse sources of electricity. There are new energy storage technologies chronically in the works. We have advanced transmission conductors. There's an increasing domestic supply of the needed minerals. Expanded transmission siting, cleaner and safer use of hydrocarbon and nuclear power sources. I believe in mankind's ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Ancient Roman aqueducts and cisterns in the Middle Ages served the people to fight against drought. In the Netherlands, they dealt with flooding and being below sea level since ancient times. Around 1000 AD in the Netherlands, they started developing a system of dikes, levees, flood walls, etc., and their economy and their lives have thrived. I believe in people's ability. Droughts, floods, extreme heat and cold, they've been going on since time immemorial, and we have improvised, adapted, and overcome, and I believe we will continue to do that. So we have all this going for us: human ingenuity, resilience, triumph of the human spirit, government programs that sometimes work, Willie Phillips at the helm of FERC. Those are some significantly positive things I have to say. Many things are out of our control. We will do the best we can with the cards dealt. Thank you so much.